Hello, Garland Nixon here. It's Monday morning, and we're hanging out with Laith Marouf.
Hey, Garland, how are you doing?
Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here. We're hanging out with Laith Marouf, and he is in the south of Lebanon. We're, let's see here. We got to come up with, there we go, freepalestine.video. If you'll give us a second here, I got to get going. Oh, come on. Rockfin isn't up yet, but hopefully in a few seconds we'll have Rockfin going. Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Technical difficulties here. But before we get going, let me remind you, of course, as always, we're going to talk about it a little bit later towards the end of the video, but freepalestine.tv, excuse me, Free Palestine TV, the way you find that is freepalestine.video. That's Laith Marouf's website. They do a lot of really good work, and you can support them. Make sure you check them all out, follow them on all the social media platforms, and of course you can donate to freepalestine.tv. So we will remind you of that. We'll talk about that later on in the video. Right now, let's get going. Laith Marouf, you are in Lebanon. What do we need to know? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're in the south of Lebanon on the border, right, with occupied Palestine in the village of Blida. We can see two Israeli outposts just over the hill here. And the village has been attempting to start a rebuilding to help the locals return. There's, it's a village of around 1,500 families. 90% of the houses are destroyed, either completely or partially, but around 140 families have returned. The village municipality has rebuilt the water distribution and for the village, and are connecting now the electricity. So there's now more incentive for the people to come back. This is one of the few villages that have been able to do this in the south, given that the Israelis keep on targeting any reconstruction efforts. And we hope that most of the south will be able to do this also.
Okay. So let's get started here. You are in Lebanon. What's the status, this business about the U.S. empire trying to disarm Hezbollah, the internal politics of that, the discussion that, there could be mutinies in the military, there could be internal civil wars. There's all this talk. You're inside of Lebanon, you know the history of it. What do you think's going on? And evaluate the circumstances for us to help us understand.
Yeah, so 2 days ago, the cabinet met of the prime minister, the Hezbollah and Amal ministers, 4 of them refused to attend. So it was an unconstitutional cabinet meeting. And in this cabinet meeting, the chief of staff, General Haikal, brought with him a plan for supposedly disarming Hezbollah. He refused to put any dates on it, and put a lot of conditions that have to be met before the military can activate such a plan. Those conditions seem to be kind of a return or a retreat from the position of the government originally to disarm Hezbollah. I think the language that was passed in this new cabinet meeting that was unconstitutional is in itself a retreat from the position that the United States and the Israelis and their minions here wanted. There will be no disarmament of Hezbollah until a national military strategy is put forward to defend the country. There's also multiple ministers that have resigned since this cabinet meeting, so we're kind of reaching a point where the whole prime minister's cabinet is going to collapse, and there will be a Nawaf Salam as a prime minister will end his career if this continues this way. So, in a way, all the bluster and threats that we've heard from the U.S. are not working against Hezbollah and the Lebanese public. And I think that Hezbollah already stopped all its cooperation with the military and the UNIFIL south of the Litani River. So that means clearly Hezbollah is rearming south of the Litani and preparing for a possibility of an attack. And this is not going to be stopped. I don't think the military or the government of Lebanon will be able to do anything to disarm Hezbollah or stop its rearmament.
What about the people in Hezbollah, the support in Lebanon, the support amongst the population? What do you think would happen if there was an attempt to disarm? I mean, first of all, they would have to go to war with Hezbollah to disarm Hezbollah, because they're just not going to do it because they know what the results, they know what the plan is.
Yeah, I think, from all the interviews that we've been doing with the locals in South Lebanon over the last week, the people have reached their limits in terms of how much patience they have for the government and the military. We've heard a lot of condemnation of the uselessness of the military in defending the villages of the south. We've heard, the locals talk about that if Hezbollah doesn't come to defend them, that they'll activate civil defense groups, that they will be reforming of militias, as has happened over the decades since 1940s. There's been waves and waves of different, civil resistance and military resistance to the occupation, and Hezbollah is just one of those phases. And Hezbollah ceases to be able to defend the population, then the population will form their own militias again in different ways. So this is clear, I think, from all the visits that we've done to the frontline villages. People are reaching their limit of patience. And so I think also Hezbollah itself can hear those voices getting louder and louder within the population of Lebanon. And therefore, this gives it even more incentive to be more radical in its positions against the military and the government of Lebanon. And that's translating, as we saw, into the actions of Hezbollah. By the way, today there was at least 20 air raids by fighter jets from the Zionist colony on the borders between Syria and Lebanon, on the Qalamon mountain region in the Bekaa Valley. We were too far away here in the south to drive to them. But that shows you that the Israelis are starting to, attack what they think are bases where large weapons, strategic weapons of Hezbollah are, since it's clear that the Lebanese military and the Lebanese government are not going to be able to do anything. But those mountains have been attacked tens of times over the last almost 2 years. So I don't think the Israelis even have coordinates for any important targets anymore in the country, and they're just bombarding randomly any mountain they feel could host bases under it.
Yemen, the Israelis attacked the Yemen government. They apparently, my understanding is they got a number of the cabinet members, but they were like the agricultural minister and stuff like that. For the most part, the military leaders remained fairly intact. And it seems as though Yemen has increased the response and increased the attacks on Israel. They have threatened the leadership of Israel. And your thought? What do you know about it? What's happening?
Yeah, the Zionists were stupid enough to target the civilian government of Sana'a, and killing the prime minister and all of those civilian ministers that were meeting in a public space and a public, announced time, as usual. So, and with their attacks on the airports in Yemen and the ports and the electricity, they opened themselves up to similar attacks. And as we saw, Yemen has retaliated in kind. Yesterday, they fired, I think, at least 4 drones on the Ramat airport, civilian and military airport in the south of occupied Palestine near the Aqaba Gulf. And 2 of those drones hit the airport, hitting the departures salon or section. So this airport is out of commission right now. Similarly, there was drones that hit Ben Gurion Airport near Tel Aviv last night. And this morning, again, the Ramat airport was hit once more with Yemeni drones. So Yemen's drones are becoming more successful, at least because, usually Yemen doesn't target civilian infrastructure. It targets military infrastructure of the Zionists, and we never get footage of that because Israelis don't allow that footage to be released. So we never could judge did Yemen actually reach the targets. But now it was all these civilians filming in the airport as the 2 drones hit their location and target. So that's clear from yesterday that Yemen's drones are actually very precise. We expect, of course, that the Yemenis will be targeting more of these airports and seaports. Last week, also during the week after that assassination of the Yemeni ministers, the Yemenis targeted the command center of the Israeli military, the command and control, and were successful with their hypersonic missiles. So again, Yemen now is increasing the number of attacks they conduct every day, and they have moved from just military targets to civilian targets because this is what the Israelis allowed to be unacceptable behavior in this battle.
I think, sorry about that. I think the Yemen exchange is really critical to this conflict. I think, a couple of things. Number one, they demonstrate the weakness of the Western, not just Israeli, not just occupied Palestine, but the very best air defense that the West has is used to protect, Tel Aviv and occupy Palestine. So they put their best stuff there. This is the crown jewel of the empire. And what Yemen is able to demonstrate is the vulnerability of that. They're able to strike back. They're able to demonstrate that no matter what, the West can't dominate the region. I also think it serves as a reminder, as much as they want to attack Iran, it serves as a reminder constantly, you're very vulnerable. I think that's just an extremely valuable entity or dynamic in this whole thing to kind of continually to strike the Zionist. And your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw this scene repeated before, but we haven't seen it since Hezbollah stopped, sending its drones into occupied Palestine. That scene of F-16s and F-15s and Apache helicopters chasing after a drone. And that happened now over the last 2 days with Yemen's drones. So that shows you that it's the Zionists and the West have given up on using their air defenses to shoot down these drones, that these drones are so advanced that they can penetrate all the air defenses that the West has laid out, specifically in the south of Palestine, where the THAADs of the U.S. are stationed also. So to see the Zionists use their jets and their helicopters to chase the Yemeni drones that's an indication of how advanced the Yemeni capabilities are and how humiliating they are to Western, scientific prowess in terms of the air defense systems. And Yemen has been doing this over the last year and a half, showing us over and over again that they are capable as a small nation to face off with America's most advanced weapons, whether it was the battle in the Red Sea with the American Navy losing that battle, or the battle in the air over Yemen, where the US and Israel were unable to destroy the capabilities of Yemen, and the Yemeni air defense systems themselves have shut down, I think something like 30 MQ-9s and, other Israeli drones that were flown over the country.
Yeah, I think it's important. Also, there's something that's now this is reported. Let me find this. This is reported at Al Mayadeen. Al Mayadeen's reporting: 7 settlers killed, several critically injured. 7 settlers were killed, and at least 21 others were injured in a shooting operation at the Ramat Junction in occupied Al Quds. Israel media is apparently reporting that. Apparently, they boarded a bus and opened fire on the passengers, and many described the unfolding events as Black Monday. One of the shooters was reportedly disguised as a police officer. They had a machine gun and apparently a modified machine gun and a pistol. And they have not yet identified the shooters' identities. Your thoughts?
Yes, they've. I think other sources have already identified the shooters, the 2 young men from villages around Jerusalem that are blockaded and surrounded by colonies, and their agricultural lands are being confiscated to give to the colonists. The weapons they used, as you mentioned, one of them had a pistol, the other had a carlo, which is the colloquial name here in the streets in the region for homemade machine guns. This is like machined at home, the weapon, and so to be able to kill 7 colonists and injured around 20 with this small capability of just the whatever 8 bullets in a regular gun, pistol, and the Carlo I think carries 12 bullets or something like that. It means that they targeted well. They were trained. They had good aim. Because we hear before sometimes, a young man carrying a weapon shoots a few people, kills one, and then all his bullets don't hit their target. So these 2 men had training and chose a perfect location to signify the problems that they are living. This is a juncture at the entrance of Jerusalem to one of these Zionist colonies that are cutting off the villages that these 2 young men come from in Jerusalem. And this is a place where the colonists feel safe. It's a bus station for specifically Jews only. This is, one of the apartheid, roads, and one of the apartheid bus lanes that only Jews can ride. So this is why I think one of these shooters dressed up as an Israeli officer. This is how they made it into this bus station that is only open for Jews. And by the way, this coincided also with an ambush that the resistance in Gaza set up for the Israeli advancing forces in the north of Gaza City, where they blew up a landmine under a Merkava tank. It's actually the command and control tank for the battalion that was invading. And the officer in charge of this operations at the scene with his senior commanders were all killed in this Merkava. So we know, 7 colonists killed at the gates of Jerusalem, and 5 Israeli soldiers killed in Gaza today. It's one of the bloodiest days in a while for the Zionists, and I think this is going to continue, whether it's the failures of the Israelis in Gaza and the abilities of the resistance to take out such valuable targets of the Zionists inside Gaza, and or the unorganized kind of lone wolf resistance that we see in the West Bank and Jerusalem. This will continue until the end of the genocide in Gaza, that's for sure.
Absolutely. There's something else I wanted to ask you about. Sorry about that. I was a little distracted. I was looking at my notes. Syria. I recently was reading something online about a bomb that was planted on the side of the road, and some government troops were going along, and it blew up apparently, and they were attacked, which leads me to believe that there is a resistance of some type that is brewing and getting stronger in Syria, that it looks like the people in Syria are going to, of course, they understand that this is so-called ISIS or whatever has always been just another proxy army for, U.S. and British imperialism, but there is a significant resistance growing. I feel like the likelihood is they're probably, knowing the imperialists like I do, they're doing everything to hide the truth, that the resistance is probably a lot more significant than that's getting out in the news.
Yes. Obviously, the Giuliani regime and HTS, they don't really control the country. They only control the major population centers between Aleppo and Damascus. So the coast is under joint Turkish-Russian control. The south is occupied by the Israelis, and Suwaida, where the majority of the Druze population are, is now kind of seceded. There's no control by the central government of HTS. The northeast with the Kurds is still occupied with the Americans and the Kurds and all their resources. So really, the HTS government in Damascus has no control over, something like 75% of the territory of the country. And at the same time, this not only shows you how weak they are as a government, but also shows you how easy it is to mount resistance at this point, because there's too many cooks in the kitchen, number one, that have competing interests, even though they're all from the same team: the Turkey, Israel, the United States, the Kurds, HTS. They're all on the same team, but they all want a bigger cut of the cake for themselves. So that makes it harder to coordinate their efforts to suppress any resistance in the country. And because the killings and the oppression of the population in Syria has been so flagrant since the fall of the Damascus Assad government, I mean, it's hard to convince anyone that HTS is doing a good job. For instance, right now we know that close to 60,000 people have been killed or disappeared since January in Syria, and this is a number one that's comparable to what happened in Gaza in a shorter period of time. And is even magnitudes higher than the worst estimates of what the Western media was saying the Assad government was doing in the beginnings of 2012 and throughout the war on Syria. So there's more dead, more disappeared, more refugees in Syria today, internal refugees, than there was at the worst peak of the war between the Wahhabi death squads and the Syrian government. So any Syrian who may have thought that getting rid of the Assad government will make things better has now realized that their life is much worse, actually. There's not only is it possible that their daughters are going to get kidnapped and thrown into sexual slavery or something like that, but that nobody will care about it. You see, at least when there was the Western media wanted to take down the Assad government, they pretended that they cared for the women and children and civilians of Syria. Today, there's nobody to cover the death or the oppression of a Syrian civilian, and therefore they now recognize, much of the population of Syria recognizes that they're worse now.
Let me ask you this. I want to throw this at you, a broader discussion. You know, a while
It's
back, I
a UN convoy passing.
oh, they might as well change the N to S. You know, a U.S. They might as well just go ahead and put an S over there. You know, I wanted to ask you this. Um, you know, a while back I watched the thing in Moscow, the May 9th, and there were these African leaders there and all of these weapons and soldiers, and you know, we saw them and they're marching and looking proud and crisp, right? We saw Trump have this thing where guys just it was kind of embarrassing. You know, these soldiers are just wandering aimlessly all over the place. They were just it really represented what the US has become. I'm watching. They're not even marching in sync. Their feet were going all over the place. It was kind of humiliating for you know. Okay, then we see this thing in China, and man, I'm like, whoa, man, these people. I mean, unbelievable, right? We see professionalism, all the weapons. Okay, and what do we see? We see the powerful world leaders, and they're looking proud, and the people are proud. Everybody's proud. And I read something that recently, and I don't know if you saw it, it said, yeah, the Trump administration is saying maybe we shouldn't focus on Moscow and China so much. Maybe perhaps we shouldn't try to take them down. Maybe we'd like, I don't know, I guess they're going to try to take out Venezuela. That ain't going to work. But, and maybe we should focus at home. It seems to me that the empire is really crumbling. And now it's getting to the point they're looking around and they're saying, man, we can't defeat the big boys. Maybe we'll try over here. But in the Middle East, Yemen's humiliating them. They want to take on Iran, but they already know that if they take on Iran again, Iran's missiles are just too powerful. And from what I'm hearing, Iran's rebuilding its air defense system. And might I add, and this is the important thing about those who think, oh, okay, they're going to attack Iran. They had the element of surprise last time for 12 hours, and they still lost. They were still 12 days. That was it. They were running out of missiles and they were in world of trouble. Okay. I don't see how they can attack Iran again, to be honest, from it. It seems to me that the worldwide, when you look at what's happening in all phases, the empire is crumbling in humiliation. I mean, just everything I look, and they can't admit it. Europe, what a joke Europe is. A group of clowns. Their economies are crashing, crumbling. 13% approval rating for Macron, 11% approval rating for Starmer's government. The empire is in complete, and it's spiraling faster and faster. It's unbelievable. Your thoughts on what we're seeing here?
Yeah, look, the Venezuela situation, I think is the most worrying out of all of not because the empire has won anything in a while, but because Venezuela is so far away from the rest of the countries that are resisting and or have the abilities to aid them. So I hope that Iran over the last few years was able to help Venezuela build up or train, as we see these now Venezuela, furnishing these militias like the popular mobilization units in Iraq in a similar fashion, right? So that Iran must have had some help in this organizing. Also, the Russians delivered air defenses over the last year. We hope that they're active now, just in case if the U.S. is stupid enough to invade Venezuela. And we don't know what China had delivered to Venezuela, but most probably they would have also added something to this. Now, will the U.S. be able to win a war against Venezuela? I mean, they can destroy any country. That's not a question. But can they occupy Venezuela? I don't know about that. And the last time, the U.S. fought in jungles, we saw what happened in Vietnam to the American troops. So it's not an easy thing to invade Venezuela. It's a big country. It's not a small country. Big population. A lot of green cover, a lot of water access. So those American ships that are facing Venezuela's shore are actually easy targets. There's a lot of now land to sea missiles like the ones that Hezbollah used that could sink, and or what Yemen used that could sink any American destroyer, and there's no defenses that could stop these hypersonic missiles from reaching their target. So I think in a way, the changing the name of the Department of Defense to the War Department, and these moving all these naval ships to the shores of Venezuela are directed towards the internal public, who have seen the American army lose against Yemen and be unable to, do what Israel wants to do in Iran. And now they need to show the public that there's actually still American military capabilities that are able to maintain the imperial power of the United States. As for uh, that victory celebrations in China, and comparing them to that parade of American soldiers that Trump organized in Washington D.C. I mean, the Chinese culture is very collective. This is nothing about race or blood, or blacks are good in basketball and whites are good in that. No, no, no. It's just a cultural organizing. Since childhood, kids are taught to play collective games that they have to coordinate with each other. So it's just the upbringing that makes people this way. And Americans or other people in the world can be as if coordinated in their marches as the Chinese military was. I mean, look at all those cheerleaders in American football games, right? You can definitely train your soldiers to be as coordinated as those cheerleaders. But the American society spends more money and more training on having those cheerleaders be coordinated than having their own soldiers be that coordinated. So that's the difference between China and the United States at this moment in terms of their coordination of their activities. And that's another indication, obviously, of imperial decay. And there's nothing stopping it. Changing the name of the department to the Department of War, number one, is good for the rest of the world. We all know now that the American military is just there for war, not for defense. And it's only playing to the internal feelings of weakness that the American public is prescribing to their military now.
Yeah, it doesn't quite look as crisp, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's, you just don't see the pride. You just don't see the crispness. And to be frank, it reflects the way the U.S. military has fought. You know what I mean? Everywhere they go, they get beaten by everybody. So if you're looking at that, it reflects the way they, and I'm not saying the military guys, I'm saying the leadership, when your entire leadership is nothing but a financial scam. That's all it is. The U.S. The Pentagon's a money laundering operation. It's nothing else but it. The whole U.S. Foreign policy is nothing more now than a money laundering operation. And so you can't expect a money laundering operation to produce anything but money into the hands of these criminals, that are running it. So I think that's where they are. On Venezuela, as you know, I've traveled there in Venezuela. I walked around. I recall going to. First of all, you got to understand something. The Venezuelan government is supported by the people because they understand that, what they're trying to do is push back against U.S. imperialism. They're not taking the guns. They literally armed 4 million people. Here you go. AK-44, millions and millions of people. The government's not afraid that the people are going to turn on them in a revolution. The government says this is the revolution against the imperialists. So they armed millions of people, millions. I can recall, I've told this story millions of times, going to little villages in the mountains, hours and hours outside of by vehicle outside of Caracas, having women walk up to me, and there was a bunch of women, and one of them could speak English, and she did this. You go back. This is her. You tell the Americans, her exact words, we will fight to protect our democracy. Her exact words. And I'm like, holy crap. I was kind of scared. I'm like, holy crap, this little woman. They were like, she knew I was American. So she was like pissed at me. You go back. You tell them sons of bitches, if they come here, they're done. Right. And everywhere you saw, there was a spirit there. There was a voting place, a polling place, and there was a bunch of soldiers around. And I said, I was like, well, are people afraid of these soldiers? I mean, these are people. Are they afraid they're going to shoot them? They said, oh, no. They're here to protect us. These are our soldiers. They're on our side. They're here to protect us from the fascists. And I'm like, wow, I saw a unity that you don't see here. If Americans saw soldiers, they'd be like, holy crap, we're scared they're going to mow us down and shoot us. We'd be afraid that our government was going to come after us. So when you go there, you realize the people there, if the Americans, any Westerners, think they're going to set foot anywhere in Venezuela, they will be chewed to pieces. They will be shot at from every village, every clump of woods, every jungle. The people there by the millions. Imagine going into a country where millions of people are armed. They have a revolutionary mindset, and they're like, we can't wait till they get here so we can shoot them. The thought that you could invade and do anything. Could they fire some missiles? Sure. But let's not forget, Venezuela overflew the ships the other day with a couple of F-16s. That's a reminder. Don't forget, we have military capabilities. They may not be as powerful as yours, but if you put if you put an F-16 and you put some anti-ship missiles on it, those ships are done. They're finished. I mean, those ships off the coast are going to get anti-shipping missiles in them. They're going to get attacked by military aircraft. The idea that this is some backwoods country that you can just bomb, there's no chance. So I don't know that they'll have the guts to really attack Venezuela. There's 30 million people, and a lot of them are armed and ready to fight. I doubt if that happens, but it would be a tragic mistake to attack Venezuela. And it's a gigantic country. It's not small.
Oh yeah. And look, a war with Venezuela would disrupt all shipping in the Panama Canal. You think Yemen is only the one capable of shutting down a canal like the Suez Canal? The shipping in the Panama Canal will be shut down, and of course, the United States a Pacific fleet will not be able to join that battle in the Atlantic, and all the islands in the Caribbean will be affected. Much of them receive their oil and gas from Venezuela. The food in the Caribbean islands is very scarce in terms of local agriculture and chickens and what have you. All of that has to be imported from outside these islands. Again, there will be shortages of food and water in the islands. If there's a war with Venezuela, it will disrupt everything in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, let alone what's going to happen with the borders with Guyana, what's going to happen with the borders.
The U.S. border. Millions of refugees should show up at the U.S. southern border. You think they got a refugee problem now, an immigrant problem now? Millions would show up, and millions of people who wanted to come to the border would take the opportunity and say things are disruptive, dysfunctional. Let's go.
And this thing with attacking the boat, which the U.S. claims was drug smugglers, that was extrajudicial murder and it is setting a standard now in the world. This has alarmed Mexico, who also is now under threat of having the United States conduct military operations on its territory under the excuse of attacking drug cartels. And, you know, this is another added level of destruction of international law. We've been living this for 2 years now with the genocide in Palestine, but to have militaries extrajudicially kill people, we've seen it done by the U.S. against civilians in Afghanistan, in Yemen, and Syria, under the excuse of countering terrorism. Now it's past that. Now we're like the excuse of countering drug smuggling. You can extrajudicially kill anybody you want to. Well, that's going to become now a norm. There may come the day that somebody decides that they're going to fly a drone over Harlem and or some borough in New York and kill some Chicago and kill some Italian mafioso or Jewish mafioso, and then say, hey, this person is in charge of drug smuggling or money laundering or what have you. So this is the danger of the things that the U.S. is doing now in Venezuela. It's making everybody's life much more dangerous, and I don't think the people in the U.S. have understood how far this is now going to make our lives worse.
Yeah, I worked in law enforcement and on the Chesapeake Bay, right? So I was all the police boats and all that stuff on the Chesapeake Bay. I ran a lot of that stuff for years. What people don't understand is the Chesapeake Bay is like one of the big for drug smuggling. You know why? Just Chesapeake Bay has lots of little rivers and creeks. I mean, like everywhere, rivers and creeks, small ones all over the place with houses and the easiest thing to do. There's boats everywhere. You just go in and out of these rivers and creeks anywhere, and you're just another boat. But this is not about that. This is about, threatening. The only drug that Venezuela has is oil. That's the drug they've got. Now, let me ask you this. Here's something that's interesting. And you and I talked about it and kind of predicted it. U.S. troops in southern Somalia come under indirect fire. Now, according to the U.S., they say there were no U.S. or partner force injuries or casualties. However, whoever it says Al-Shabaab did it, but whatever they said, they claim, yes, there was injuries. The U.S., they said it killed and wounded American troops. AFRICOM denied there were any casualties. Well, they never have any. And then like a couple months later, they'll say some people died in a car accident in Latvia or something like that. Or training, oh, yes, a helicopter went down in Southern California and a dozen troops were killed. They will never say they were actually killed. You and I discussed this. Africa, it's just a matter of time, and it looks like it's starting to happen now, that the troops in AFRICOM are exposed, and they will, and apparently already are being attacked.
Yeah, it's very expected for a long time that somehow, look, people don't understand this. Somalia, Djibouti, and Eritrea are on the other side of the water with Yemen. And for centuries, the populations of Somalia, Djibouti, Eritrea are intermarried into Yemeni populations because of trade and back and forth between the water. So it was expected that at some point, what's happening in Yemen will spill over to the other side of the pond. And in fact, much of the American and Israeli attacks on Yemen are coordinated from the American and Emirati bases in Somalia, Djibouti, and Eritrea. And therefore, they will come under attack much easier as a target than Yemen retaliating all the way to American bases somewhere else. So, and as we see in this situation, they don't even have to claim it. And any group can call itself Shabab and attack an American base in Somalia. So it doesn't have to even be the actual Shabab of Somalia that are doing this. So the Pandora's box is open right now. everyone is maneuvering any assets they have to target each other. And the United States bases, especially I think in Djibouti right now, will be a major target because the naval base in Djibouti has Italian, French, German, and American troops. So this is, I expect it also to come under attack very soon.
I would also say this. I would imagine a lot of assets are being put in place that if the United States and the Zionists finally decide, but I repeat myself, if the Zionist empire decides to say, okay, we're going to attack Iran, that there are a lot of people saying, okay, that's the big one. And if they attack Iran, then assets are in place in Africa, in here, in Iran, in Syria, in Iraq, that assets are in place everywhere to say if they attack Iran, they'll be weak and they'll get hit. And at that point, we can hit them from all, you know what I mean? That it would just be a grave error because I think assets are everywhere to say at that point, because if they were going to attack Iran, okay, they want to take Iran out. That means, though, it's like I always say about self-defense and fighting. If anybody teaches someone self-defense, what do? Strike, and you'll see somebody, boom, and bring your hand right back. Why? Because when you strike is when you are the most vulnerable. If you see somebody make a big punch, a big hook, and they miss, look at this. Your arm's over here. Oh, sorry about that. Your arm is over there. So when you punch, if you don't get that arm back, if you make a big old punch and you miss, everything is open. Bat, 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 bat. They can break your ribs. They can grab your arm, twist it, put you in a lock. When you attack is when you are most vulnerable. You have to be careful. A lot of people win by what? A counterattack, right? A lot of military victories. Somebody attacks, boom, a counterattack. They weren't expecting, they're knocked out. If they attack Iran, they will be so vulnerable at that point. And I think there are a lot of people saying, we're not necessarily going to attack these bases. We're going to wait for the Americans. And when they make their move, I think it'll be a lot of places in Africa, embassies, you name it. That would be the one that would take them out, I think, to attack Iran.
Yes, I think. Look, it's inevitable. The roll up to war. The U.S. has and the Zionists, which are the same as you said, have no choices but to continue this war until they're either defeated or they kill everybody. A retreat right now will just accelerate the collapse of the colony and the empire. In fact, one may say that if we look right now at what the Zionists are doing in terms of these genocide in Gaza and the mass destruction of civilian infrastructure, targeting civilians all over the region, at some point now it's starting to look like it's deliberate, not only as a strategy, as a military strategy, but that they deliberately want everybody to hate them. And this falls into this idea that they are looking to bring the end of times. They want Armageddon. And part of this Armageddon strategy in their head is to make everybody hate, not Zionists only, but to hate Jews, right? And this will bring all Jews together to fight the rest of the world in this Armageddonist, fantasy that they have in their head, that they want everybody to hate them in order to have this war of Jews versus the rest. So, years ago, saying such things would made you have sounded like you're a crazy person. But I think there's a tractor. Yes. Agricultural tractor guy going to his land to work it. So years ago, saying things like this would have made you sound crazy. But now it's like we can't find any logical justification of why Israel is conducting genocide openly, and why is the West supporting them in such ways after 2 years, except that they actually want everybody to hate them. Okay, and so now this is where I think we are at, where we have these messianic Armageddonists in control in the US and all parts of the empire. And they think that getting the rest of the world to hate them, including the United States, by the way, that this will somehow strengthen the internal resolve of the American people or the Israeli people in their fight against the rest of humanity.
Well, and now that may be it. Let me give you an alternative. Just so we're
I
just
just want to say that I'm running out of battery on my phone.
How much time you got
I'm
left?
sorry. It's like giving me warnings. So
okay.
if we
All
can
right.
wrap
Well, we
it
got to
up.
go. We got to go. So thank you very much. I just want to remind everybody, and this is what is important. Let's see. So if we lose Laith, then I'm still going to show this. So the important thing before we go, and that is Laith, whether you go or not, that's okay. I'm going to show everybody Free Palestine TV. That's freepalestine.video. That is critical. Let's not forget that it is important to get information out of the region in a format that Westerners understand, and of course in English. So this is great. You can see it. It's a fantastic. If you want to know what's going on, you got your latest episodes. The most important parts right here. Look at this. You can donate to Free Palestine TV one time or monthly. So make sure you go to freepalestine.video. That's freepalestine.video. And if you can afford it, make sure you support them. Even if you can't, the most important thing you can do is share this on all your social media platforms and make sure that you put a little note when you post it. Everybody, we got 600 people right now. That's 600 posts on Instagram, on Facebook, on you name it, Telegram, on X, for freepalestine.video that says, if you can afford it, please support them either, a one time or monthly. That's what you need to put in there so we can all get together and we can all work together and do what we can do. Thanks a lot, everybody. Really appreciate your support. Laith, keep up the good work, man, and we'll talk again next week.
See you soon, Garland.
All right.